Stoke Newington. So if I could sell this one out, it would be fantastic. It's quite a big room. I'll be very surprised if I do. But please buy tickets if you want to come and see someone hit songs.
Yeah. Can I ask a musical question?
Yes.
In a very footballing sense, there's the tough places to go to as grounds. Are there any tough places on the music scene that are notoriously hard to go to and get the crowd on your side?
In my
Moth Club.
long career, I've been playing music since I was about 15. So we're talking about, 25 years now.
Right.
The hardest ones to play are the ones where there are no people there, and I've been to lots of them.
Right.
So I would say that.
Okay.
This one should have some people there.
Come and support JJ on the 6th of December, the Moth Club in London. Equally, come and support Totally Football's show when we do another live experience. It's going to be at the Leicester Square Theatre. A little bit of advance notice here because it's not until the 23rd of March. You can find out further details like the lineup at leicestersquaretheatre.com. Some tickets have already been sold, JJ.
That's good.
Can confirm. You know who's got some time on his hands? Vitor Pereira, who, as you probably saw after Saturday's defeat at the hands of Fulham, is no longer the manager of Wolves. We'll be getting onto that a little bit later on. But producer Charlie pointing out this is very much the curse of Nuno Espirito Santo. All the firings so far this season have been directly connected with Nuno. You look at them. The first one was Nuno. Then it was the man who replaced him at Nottingham Forest. Then it was the man that he replaced. And now it's the man who took over his old club. Which Nuno-related manager will be next? If you're a Nuno-related manager, you've got to be looking over your shoulder right now, I think.
I don't think I can argue that. That's pretty fair. Yeah.
Excellent. Anyway, on to the weekend's action in the Premier League. It was Matchday 10. Sunday afternoon saw Man City beating Bournemouth. What was the final score? 3-1? 3-1. Yes. Just like the earlier game on Sunday, which saw West Ham defeating Newcastle. Man City, anyway, with their victory over the Cherries, go into second place in the Premier League table. Still 6 points behind Arsenal, who beat Burnley 2-0. City, meanwhile, a point ahead of the team who've moved into third, who are the reigning champions Liverpool, who ended their 4-game losing streak by beating Aston Villa 2-0. At the other end, that 2-0 defeat for Wolves at the hands of Fulham. So Pereira out. That leaves them very much bottom of the table. The other two teams in the bottom three both avoided defeat. West Ham, as I mentioned, beating Newcastle 3-1. Forest getting their first point under Sean Dyche in a haircut postponing 2-2 draw with Man United. Elsewhere this weekend, Chelsea were 1-0 winners at Spurs. Worrying scenes for the home side there and the home manager Thomas Frank. Palace beat Brentford 2-0 and Brighton thumped Leeds 3-0. And on Monday night at the Stadium of Light, there's Sunderland-Everton. That's to come. We begin today with Manchester City 3, Bournemouth 1. Some comms, perhaps.
Yeah, Haaland second. Haaland at the double again.
Oh, all right then. Poor old-fashioned Man City with goals from open play. Open play.
Love to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was really fun to watch.
Did you like it?
I mean, there's loads of cool things going on tactically as well, but it just seemed like two teams who were playing football rather than smashing into the back of the net with a
City
corner.
were playing football with Ryan Cherky, Phil Foden and Jeremy Doku all in the same side. And as you say, it was a lot of fun, unless you were a Bournemouth defender, especially when Cherky kept releasing the juggernaut that is Erling Haaland. 2 goals for him. He's now up to 26 for club and country this season. That City, is that a City we'll see against other teams, or was it just because they were playing Bournemouth?
I think that's a really good question because I think it is probably Guardiola doing something to try and pull apart the way Bournemouth would play, the way they press especially. So on the ball, you saw City often had... Jeremy Doku was the most obvious example of this. He would normally be, you'd think, in a Guardiola team, stuck out wide in the touchline like a winger. But he was oftentimes inside the middle, looking like a deep-lying playmaker, like in the middle of the pitch, and he would then join in the attack later on. He was involved in all the chances I think Haaland had. So you're getting him in the middle, which meant Nico O'Reilly, the left-back, was pushing up to be width on the left. But then you had Cherky and Foden and him and Doku would be all quite close together, which is very much not the positional kind of thing that Guardiola would normally do. And so you get good players together, close together, and they can just let them play and they can do nice things. And it makes it so much more fun to watch. And then part of it also is that players would drop in certain points because then it would track the way that Bournemouth want to press them. They would then be triggered to go and jump onto these players when they dropped, which gives you space in behind for Haaland to get in behind. So I think a lot of it is tactical manipulation on Guardiola's part, but also there's a thing that Guardiola's doing where he's going a little bit more football man-ish. There's a few quotes I've seen recently where he just says, like, Cherky's an amazing player. Just get him to play rather than give him loads of instructions, which is what we associate with Guardiola normally, you know? So maybe he's coming full circle. Maybe he's going to be the pioneer of like a Tony Pulis type that just lets the players go on and do a bit of running around and have a bit of fun.
Well, when you've got players like that, I guess you can do that. Adrian, you were watching this perhaps from a slightly Arsenal point of view. How worried are you to see City getting into this kind of form again?
No, not worried. I think it's normal, isn't it? They're going to find some form. They've got some brilliant players. It was an excellent performance, I must say. I was really impressed by them. I thought they ran hard, which is always important. But they did. The off-the-ball running was really dynamic. There was a little bit of explosiveness about them. There wasn't anything, I would say, that was sluggish about the performance. I think JJ's hit the nail on the head with his sort of tactical assessment. That's kind of how I saw it. And I'm a massive fan of chaos. I just think chaos is hugely underrated. And I wish more teams would deploy it, because it's what defenders don't want. You know, a whole plethora of talented midfielders popping up here, there and everywhere, rotating all over the place. It is a nightmare to contain, especially if you've got a guy up front that likes to run onto through balls. And City had a lot of through ball experts in their ranks today, didn't they? So, yeah, no, it was a brave lineup from Pep, and the players delivered for him. That said, I would say that both Bournemouth and Villa absolutely played to the strengths of the opponents this weekend. I think Liverpool and City's sort of current or recent wobbles gave them a confidence to try things and try and be really proactive. And I think in both cases it kind of backfired a little bit. So, but I mean, Bournemouth's high line against City with Haaland is, you know, I know it's the way they play, but very risky.
Very risky. You enjoy chaos, introduce a little anarchy, upset the established order, and everything becomes chaos. I'm an agent of chaos. Who said that?
Oh, I know who that. I can't
Do
remember.
you?
I can't think. I've heard. Who is that?
Why so serious, JJ?
Oh,
It's the Joker. And the reason I say this is because did you see Erling Haaland going round as the Joker? I say going round,
yeah.
but like yourself, Adrian, Erling Haaland is a YouTube personality. Yeah. And for his YouTube channel, he went round out on Halloween dressed as a kind of Heath Ledger iteration of the Joker. Very effective makeup. Did you see this, Liam?
I did, yes.
Right. I found it quite sad. I know that wasn't intended. I think it was quite melancholy as a Halloween video, because he says he goes out on the streets of Manchester, but he largely goes to one petrol station forecourt and interacts with two people in this kind of fluorescent lit, this island of fluorescent light in the middle of a dark Manchester outskirts.
Your description of that makes it sound very, very much like a Partridge episode.
Do you know what? There is a touch of that, because he can't obviously go in. Well, I say obviously. I imagine he didn't feel like going into the centre of Manchester. So, yeah. But, you know, fair play to him and that. Sorry, Liam, you wanted to talk about something else, I imagine.
No, not particularly. But doesn't he also go ice fishing or something on his holidays? And, you know, I think there's some players that just like the kind of more remote, simple life. So.
Right. Petrol stations on the outskirts of Manchester.
If it makes him happy.
Lakes.
Yeah. Maybe that's his secret. So yeah.
Maybe so. Some things his secret, because he's up, as I say, to 26 goals for club and country, and continues to be utterly away and beyond everybody else in football. The Cherries have never won at Man City, or even taken a point at the Etihad. So I guess this doesn't make that this isn't that surprising a result. They did get one goal back after the Donnarumma wobble on the Chelsea, which saw Tyler Adams, I think, equalise momentarily. Yeah. Adrian, sorry, you looked like you were going to...
Yeah, that was a mistake, wasn't it, from Donnarumma? I mean, there was a foul from Brooks as the corner was delivered, but he let go with plenty of time, and it was just a poor punch from Donnarumma. who's not as dominant in the air as you might imagine for a big guy. Now, the point I wanted to make was that as brilliant as Bournemouth have been, and they have been, and Iraola is a tremendous coach. I love him. They've actually been really leaky on the road this season. So perhaps we shouldn't be over surprised that City cut free and caused them massive problems. I was looking at their expected goals away from home, and only 2 teams have a worse tally than Bournemouth, and that's Burnley and Manchester United. So on the road they've not been solid, and they absolutely weren't solid here. And Senesi, who I know JJ likes, it wasn't great. He made a couple of bad decisions that were certainly punished.
I see. There you go. Big win for Man City. Slight back in your box for Bournemouth. City next up will be hosting Dortmund. Erling Haaland against his old side, Clarkson. Do you remember that we were looking at that remarkable goal he scored in his first season at Manchester City when he first game back against Dortmund in the Champions League? Who put that ball in?
João Cancelo. Nice outside the foot pass.
And he hooks it out of the sky with an improbably high leg. Anyway, perhaps we'll see similar antics this Wednesday when City welcome Borussia Dortmund to the Etihad. And then on Sunday, Manchester City will be off at Anfield facing Liverpool, who this weekend beat the team that beat Manchester City last weekend in that confusing way that football often works. Liverpool 2, Aston Villa 0. Boy, did they need this. Who's got a hot take or still mediumly warm take on Liverpool 2, Aston Villa nothing?
Well, their pressing was really, really good. And I think a really understated player in all of that is Dominic Szoboszlai. His energy is absolutely fantastic. I've been watching kind of Florian Wirtz a little bit, and I actually think he's been all right kind of on the ball, but it's out of possession where he's really kind of struggled. That showed against Brentford where kind of Christopher Raya, I think, bullied him a bit and kind of dribbled past him a few times. But Szoboszlai kind of leading the press or being that person that can make the jumps in midfield, like what JJ was talking about with Bournemouth. He's phenomenal, and that you need those players that are either going to make the big aggressive sprint right at the start or the ones that have got the energy to actually jump up and shut down the passes in midfield. Adrian was right about kind of Villa playing into the hands a little bit too much, but it was really well executed by Liverpool.
Well, for the last, 3-4 weeks, everybody, including the Liverpool manager, has been saying to everybody, we can't defend against long balls. We can't handle long throws. So Unai Emery, JJ, went, yeah, but what if we don't do any of those things? What if we play like Southampton under Russell Martin?
It appears not to have worked. Yeah. And it is an odd choice because you think we just go super direct at them. That's exactly what he said you should do against Liverpool because they can't figure out how to handle it. I think he said we haven't found the solution yet. That was last week, I think, when I was doing research. So an odd choice, but I mean, Emery has his own things he wants to do. So he has his principles. He's principled. Right. He sticks to it.
I thought he was a manager that was able to adapt to other clubs to divine weaknesses in opposition and adapt to those. In this game, he not only started in that fashion, but just continued the whole 90 minutes.
I mean, again, you'd think you might try and adapt it up and change, but maybe he keeps thinking that's exactly what Slot thinks I'm going to do. So maybe Slot will change it. So if I don't, therefore, by the end of this game, we should be in a position that benefits us.
Liverpool then, was it all about Villa's poor passing out from the back? Was it about their pressure? What impressed you about them, Adrian?
Yeah, no, it was the pressing. There was a good appetite to sort of get after Villa, who, when Villa did play around the Liverpool press or through it, they created some really dangerous moments. So it wasn't all bad. And, you think about that shot from Rodgers onto the post and the Matty Cash effort was brilliant, wasn't it? That was a great save from Mamadashvili. But no, I think that the standout for me was that this was like Liverpool from last season. It was Gravenberch, McAllister and Szoboszlai, wasn't it? And, Salah was it on the right, Gakpo on the left, Robertson was at left back. It was all very familiar, wasn't it? I mean, it is interesting. I mean, Wirtz at the moment isn't in the first 11. Nor's Kerkez. One of Ekatiko or Isak is probably always going to be on the bench. That's 3 massive signings that aren't in the 11, basically. So it's almost as if they really didn't need to spend all that money. But yeah, this was like a stripped back Liverpool of old. And Yeah, they deserved the win. But I was disappointed in Emery. I just think Emery overthought it. The double bluff of going for the opposite of what Liverpool might have expected, backfired quite spectacularly. And I do think he's a manager that is guilty of overthinking things. You know, his record's brilliant. We know that. But yeah, when he was manager of Arsenal, he frustrated me quite a lot. I have to be honest. With some of his game plans, which were sometimes a little bit odd.
Slot got a fair amount of flack for Liverpool's exit from the League Cup midweek because he not only rested pretty much all the first team, but didn't even have them on the bench when the game turned against them. Is he justified? Is he vindicated with the performance here? Fresh legs and that?
I guess so, but I think I'm of the belief that what Liverpool didn't look like they needed currently was more games and to try and play across 4 competitions when they were struggling. I'm not saying it's okay to throw a game, but I think it was in years gone by when Klopp's played really young players. It's I don't think it's a problem. They want to try and defend their title. They want to try and go deep in the Champions League. It's hard to do that across, I think we've seen Arsenal quite stretched in recent seasons across multiple competitions and then end up not winning kind of anything. And then that becomes a bigger problem if you go, well, you should have prioritised.
Right. We saw that perhaps with Liverpool last season as well.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, that was Liverpool ending that losing streak they've been on. So much needed win for them. Arsenal, meanwhile, continued their remarkable winning consecutive. Yeah. Arsenal, meanwhile, continued their remarkable winning streak. Their 9th consecutive victory. This latest one coming 2-0 away to Burnley at Turf Moor. Some numbers about the Gunners. Well, it's 9 wins in a row. That's the first of them. It's the best defensive start to a campaign by any English club in history. Even better than the Mourinho Chelsea. They've only conceded 3 goals. Those coming against, those scored by Haaland, Voltemade and Schlobbersley. They've had 7 clean sheets in a row, equaling the Arsenal club record, which was set by George Graham's Gunners in 1987. They've only allowed 4 shots on target across their last 5 Premier League games. James, where did I write this down? Oh, James Benji pointing out that pretty much everybody else in the Premier League have conceded 4 more goals in their last 5 Premier League games. Arsenal, no more than 4 shots. Remarkable. Adrian, you watched this. Anything new?
No, not really. No, nothing majorly new. The way I sort of read the game was that Arsenal played for about 24 minutes where they were blistering, where they completely dominated the game. They created 8 chances in the space of that 24 minutes. It was between the 14th and the 38th minute, they created their 8 best chances. And outside of that, they really just played in first or second gear and made sure that they didn't use up too much energy. So yeah, it was a really efficient performance. 2 big standout performers for me. Declan Rice was unreal in the game. Obviously, he scored that goal from the counter-attack, the header, which was lovely. But yeah, he won. I think he won 5 out of 5 tackles, 3 interceptions, 9 ball recoveries, 9 duels. He was everywhere. Absolutely phenomenal he was. And the other big standout for me was Gyökeres. He only played until half time. Apparently he had a little bit of a niggle, so he came off. But he was really good. Like, he looked much sharper than he has and caused Burnley a lot of problems. He created 3 chances. He scored 1 as well. So yeah, Gyökeres and Rice, terrific. But in truth, this was it was a bit of a cruise, really. They didn't have to get much of a sweat on.
You're off in the Czech Republic. Arsenal on Tuesday taking on Slavia Prague. If they keep a clean sheet in that will be 8 clean sheets in a row, and only once before in their long history have they managed 8 consecutive clean sheets. It was back in 1903, Adrian. This is an epocally good Arsenal team.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, and there's a real desire to keep clean sheets, that they love defending. And I was brought up as a kid coming through the ranks at Arsenal on George Graham and his teams. And what was the hallmark of those teams was the appetite to defend and the absolute way that every single player just hated conceding. They couldn't bear the thought of it. And when Arsenal moved away from that in the sort of Wenger years and Emery and stuff, it didn't feel right. And I feel like it's come back now. It's come full circle. And Gabriel is the leader. He has been on a different level, really. I think to any other centre back in the Premier League this season, he shows so much appetite to defend, and it just rubs off on everybody else. So yeah, they hate the notion of giving up a chance, let alone a goal. And I've got to say that's a really healthy trait to have, isn't it? So look, there will come a time where they start leaking goals, but it's a long time now since Arsenal were conceding multiple goals. So yeah, from my end, long may that continue.
So those kind of late 90s, early noughties, Wenger years with the titles and the Invincibles and all that, you were sat there going, yeah, fine, but it's not proper. It's not proper Arsenal.
Kind of, yeah. But no, I love the football. I mean, the football's beautiful. I've never seen football like it.
Right.
It's just, can you have a bit of both? You want to be greedy, and the ultimate team would sort of play the Wenger way in attack, and maybe the Arteta way in terms of that appetite and resilience to keep clean sheets. But yeah, it's good to see it back, and I do think Arsenal supporters of a certain vintage place a real heavy emphasis on being able to defend. And yeah, so basically people that are 50 or over, maybe in their 40s or over, they are absolutely loving this because it reminds them of the Arsenal teams that they grew up on.
Magnificent. Very nice. Next up, let's hear about events down the other end of the Premier League table. Coming into this weekend in England's top 7 tiers, that's 252 different football clubs. Only 2 of those sides had yet to win this season. They were Starbridge and Wolves. One of them did finally win this weekend.
Stamford.
Oh, it was the other one, wasn't it?
Stamford beat Starbridge.
Really? I thought Starbridge beat Stamford. Hold on, viewer.
Stamford won 3-1 at
Stamford. Only 2 teams. Producer Charlie was right. There's a shock. Only 2 teams had yet to win this season. Stamford and Wolves. One of them did finally win, beating Starbridge 3-1 in the Southern League Premier Division Central. Could Wolves beat Starbridge 3-1 in the Southern League Premier Division Central? Possibly, but they didn't win their game this weekend. They lost 3-0 at Fulham, and their manager, Vitor Pereira, was sacked straight afterwards. He signed a new 3-year deal at Molineux only 45 days ago. Sad to see it end this way. He'd done such a great job taking over from Gary O'Neill when he arrived there in December 2024. They were 19th when O'Neill was fired. Pereira got them back up to a 16th place finish. Who's among the favourites to take over now from Pereira long term? Why? It's Gary O'Neill. Liam, what other names are in the frame?
I haven't seen other names, but Gary O'Neill's very interesting because he was kind of semi-recently on Monday Night Football and didn't seem overly glowing about Wolves and kind of the infrastructure there, I think, and kind of the way key players that had been sold on and made good money, but maybe not quite replaced in the right way. Because I think Wolves now the first team ever to lose, to not win, I think, in 10 games in consecutive Premier League seasons at the start. So it's really hard to try and, in that same way when you don't then build on it and you lose the key assets that made that team so good, like, Semedo, Nouri, Cunha. They've done it a lot in recent years, but I think there comes a point where you need to keep that group together for a while.
Absolutely. Gary O'Neill, Luke Edwards and Michael Carrick among
Rob
the...
Edwards.
Rob Edwards, sorry. Say that again. So what was it? Gary O'Neill, Rob Edwards and Michael Carrick among the candidates mentioned.
What was it? Filtered by English coaches in their 40s? Was that the
very
the search?
possibly?
Yeah,
very possibly. Which makes a departure for them, I guess. I mean, in some ways. Anyway, this latest result was a 3-0 defeat against Fulham. Fulham ending their 4-game losing streak in the Premier League, and that was much needed because they were right down. They were only just above the bottom 3 themselves. Does it matter who comes in? Do you see a Wolves team who are on 2 points after 10 games in potentially Derby County record-breaking form?
I mean, the thing with Wolves, like has just been said, is that they sold all their best players, and they still have Strand Larsen, I think is decent, but they've lost the quality that gave them a bit of an edge in those tight games last season. They don't have that now, so I think it'll be really interesting if Gary O'Neill comes in and then takes them up the table, and then the start of next season the same thing happens and they bring Vitor Pereira back, and we can just do, because it would show me that nothing I say makes any sense and doesn't matter. But also, I don't know, there's something about that I would like. That would be the perfect narrative, I think,
Right.
for the season now.
Yeah. Well, sometimes a change is as good as a rest or something. A change is as good as a decent
That's it.
signing.
It's that new manager bounce thing. I think people try to prove the myth isn't true, that you just get a change of atmosphere around the club. So, I think often managers need to have a good start, and then suddenly you think they're good, and therefore you go with it. If they start badly, they probably actually aren't bad at their jobs, but everyone just thinks, oh, well, nothing's really changed. So you could keep firing a manager until you win the first game, and then you'll maybe win the next one, and get momentum, and it could be anyone.
That's definitely going to work, JJ. Curious enough, this season I've seen a couple of managers come in and have absolutely no bounce at all. One of them being Nuno Espirito Santo in his latest job, which is at West Ham. They did finally today get their first win under their Portuguese boss. It was 3-1 at the hands of Newcastle. Liam, you were there. First of all, scenes of disbelief as the home fans saw their team winning at the London Stadium.
Yeah, I won't repeat the full chant, but it was something along the lines of, how are you not very good, we're winning at home, which I think is the first West Ham home win since, I think, back in February against Leicester, who obviously went on to be relegated. So, much needed, and there were, I think, still a sitting kind of small fan protest after, which always was a little bit weird after they've won. Obviously, still in their eyes very justified, and maybe even more important to not kind of be so emotional and say you wouldn't do it with the result. But Nuno, he was absolutely beaming on the touchdown when that third goal went in.
Newcastle were, I think you're going to write in your report, a huge disappointment, but let's not take anything away from West Ham, who looked a lot more like a joined-up football team. Is that right?
I think so. I mean, look, Newcastle scored after about 4 or 5 minutes. Ironically, right after West Ham had a really good attack, Jared Bowen had just hit basically the inside of the post, and Newcastle then went immediately down the other end, and Jacob Murphy did the same thing as Jared Bowen, but this time it went the other side of the post. And suddenly from there you think, oh God, 5 minutes in, against a Champions League level Newcastle team who can be really devastating when they kind of get into their flow. But West Ham, to their credit, kind of grew into the game. Newcastle have been a poor away team all season, and I think stretching back to the end of last year, they looked quite passive a lot of the time. I mean, even the West Ham goals are quite poor from a defensive aspect, like Wan-Bissaka's running in behind, and neither Burn or Gordon kind of picks him up, or they don't really exchange their marking roles very well, and then sure, it's an own goal, but they just kind of they're getting picked apart quite easily. There was a moment in the first half where Bruno gets booked because there's no pressure on the ball, there's a pass through midfield, Somerville gets on the turn and Bruno has to bundle him over, and you think, we were just speaking about how good and kind of compact Arsenal are, and how teams now are, I think, increasingly getting better at kind of defending that middle part of the pitch and being a real kind of team and a unit there. And I don't quite see that with Newcastle. They've got, I think they're one of the best teams in the league still when they kind of press and go into the opposition half. The midfielders kind of all lock on. They can be really aggressive, and I think especially when kind of the Champions League lights are on, they can really play up a level. But you've still got to go to West Ham and to these bottom half teams and be an aggressive team without the ball.
Absolutely. It's an interesting situation down the bottom now. West Ham moving up to 18th place above Nottingham Forest. The Hammers now 3 points from safety. The teams above the bottom three, you've got Fulham, Everton, Leeds and Burnley, all separated by just 1 point. And Newcastle are only a point above that. Adrian?
Yeah. I mean, results haven't been brilliant, especially on the road. I was just thinking this was just not a game that suits them. I always think Newcastle are better when there's an even split in possession, or if the opponent has a little bit more, because they're so good without the ball. They're such a good pressing team, but in this game they had over 62% of possession. And I think if you look at their record under Howe, when they've had over 60% of possession, the results have been fairly mediocre. So they've got to find a way to sort of find that energy and rhythm when they have more of the ball. I mean, Eddie Howe made it crystal clear what he thought of the performance. I mean, taking off Gordon and Voltemada at half-time, along with Emil Kraft, speaks volumes, really, doesn't it? He was fuming. But for me, just touching on West Ham quickly, just the balance of the team. It's a really simple thing, but it just looks right. Freddie Potts, who came in and made his full debut, was terrific. Really good disciplined performance from him. And then either side of him is two natural box-to-box midfielders who can create but also get back and defend in Mateus Fernandes and Lucas Paquetá. Two wingers that are quick in Somerville and Bowen. And Wilson is sort of a patched up version, patched up number 9, I guess, at the moment. Probably wouldn't be their first choice, but did okay. So, yeah, it's a step in the right direction. I was really, really impressed by West Ham today. And it's been quite a while since I said that. So, yeah, well played to all of them. They thoroughly deserve this win.
JJ.
Well, the thing with Newcastle, I was thinking, to go back to them, is that they rely heavily on intensity, which is a thing it's almost impossible to maintain all season long, especially with, like we were talking about before, with other competitions you're playing in. You're trying to compete in the Champions League as well. And I think it's really hard to gain any momentum. And because, if your strength is in your athleticism and your physicality that you've got, but suddenly every team is also the same as that, you lose your advantage, and then you need to be able to create some other way. But teams are finding it really hard to create with the ball this season. It's mostly been set pieces and things like that because everyone's so massive, which also ties into West Ham looking better in this game. I'm not convinced they were great personally, but I think they look better, and I think the balance thing is exactly right because for ages they've looked really slow and they've lacked power. And I think having that speed in, like Adrian said, I think that's exactly what made them look better today, is having a bit more of that.
Plus playing against Eddie Howe's Newcastle, because Nuno won his first game, I think, at Forest against Eddie Howe's Newcastle as well. Liam, sorry.
No, yeah, I was just going to touch on Newcastle and what JJ says about kind of having such an intense style. They fell away massively a couple of seasons ago when they got to the Champions League. And then admittedly, then they were kind of in that group of death with Dortmund, PSG and Milan, I think. So that was hard to do. But then the tricky part is that Eddie Howe really likes a small squad, and he said that before. He likes playing kind of the same 11 as much as he can to have those relationships. And they've been really hampered out wide. They've lost Tino Livramento, and he said he named Lewis Hall on the bench today because they didn't have any other fit senior professionals. He said he didn't want to put Hall on the bench, but felt he had no choice. I think he'd had one training session, so he's working his way back. And they're a team that are built on their wide attacking quality. They're not a team that tend to carve opponents apart through the middle of the pitch. They get fullbacks on the overlap or the underlap. Last season it was all those crosses for Alexander Isak, or it was Jacob Murphy providing those low passes for him. And it's a similar-ish kind of approach this year with Altamada. It's very much a similar, probably even more of a target man, to be honest. So I think they're just really, really struggling, because you look at that back four today and it looks kind of like four centre-backs. And okay, there's arguments that teams like Arsenal perhaps are playing four centre-backs, and yet it's Ricardo Calafiori overlapping or underlapping and ending up in the box being the attacker. But they looked a lot less balanced than West Ham today.
There you go. Down the wrong end of the table, Newcastle. Forest, I mentioned West Ham moving above them in the bottom three, but they also move a point closer to safety after picking up their first point under Sean Dyche. This was in a 2-2 draw Saturday afternoon at home to Man United, and Forest probably feeling a little bit shortchanged that they didn't take all 3 points. A controversial opener saw Forest conceding for the second straight week from a corner that probably wasn't a corner. The ball hadn't actually gone out of play, but a corner was whistled for and Casemiro put in from the resulting kick. I mean, this kind of thing does happen a lot every game. I think there might have been a couple of decisions of this kind that went against United in the game as well. But Forest, broadly speaking, one good thing about this was the fact that they hadn't scored a single goal for 4 league games in a row, and they managed to get 2 in 2 minutes to take the lead after United's opener.
Yeah, I think kind of some slightly more scrappy goals. I think there's still some questions to be asked of United in kind of their game management. They look really good when they can kind of sit off teams and be, I don't know if pragmatic's the right word, but not always kind of the dominant team. That right side for United's really clicking, I think, with Mbeumo and Ahmad. But Forest have got a similar problem really to Newcastle that we're just talking about having, okay, admittedly they've got kind of managerial changes and more kind of going on there, but they've got a squad that they've added players into that have been a really good clear identity team last season that had perhaps overperformed a little bit in the sense of you can't expect to win 1-0 every week, and they now have to try and find different ways to play in kind of European football and then manage the players and fitness and stuff that way. So it's a really hard situation to be juggling, and they're probably similar to Newcastle where they need to still be picking up points, and obviously you always need to pick up points, but especially where you go, you don't want the situation of doing well in Europe and then being dragged into a relegation scrap at kind of the same time. It was quite weird when that was kind of Manchester United and Tottenham last season, and I think it's quite an uncomfortable place, especially this year with promoted teams being competitive. So it's hard.
It is indeed. Adrian, this was the end to Man United's recent 3-game winning streak. What did you make of their performance?
It wasn't bad. It wasn't terrible. I mean, it was quite a much more fun game than I expected. I thought Sean Dyche might sort of shut up shop, but it was really open, wasn't it? Both teams had a lot of chances. I think Man United had 7 shots on target in the game. It's quite bold. Obviously, it's a bold 11 that he's gone with, relatively speaking, at the moment. First time, by the way, he's named an unchanged starting 11. As in his 37th Premier League match in charge of United, which is nuts, really, isn't it? So he's gone with that again. One sort of takeaway I had was Amad Diallo at wing back. I think you saw the reason to pick him and also a reason not to pick him in this game. Having him at wing back is risky when teams put the ball in the box because he doesn't feel comfortable defending, and obviously he's out jumped by Morgan Gibbs-White for that equaliser just early on in the second half. But then, of course, being bold and having him in the team gives you the chance to get him in and around the box, and that was a sensational volley, wasn't it, on the left foot? And he almost scored another, didn't he? It was an amazing sort of clearance off the line from Murillo right at the end. So, yeah, personally, I think most United fans would like to see Amad in the team, and if that means playing him at wing back and it being a little bit risky, then maybe so be it.
Okay, and fun for the neutrals as well. Excellent. Lots more to talk about from this Premier League match day, including events at the derby between Spurs and Chelsea, and we'll get onto that next. This Saturday, a new Totally Extra came out. It's all about Euro 2000. Greatest international tournament of all time, Liam.
With the year in which I was born. So
There you go. There you go. If you fancy having a listen to that, it's out there. You can check it out now, or maybe not now, but whenever you want. Because, timeless, really. No. Totally Football Show European edition is very much time sensitive because it's going to be looking ahead to this midweek and all the Champions League fun and games. Mentioned Man City will be taking on Dortmund, but there's some huge other matches, including Liverpool against Real Madrid. That's on Tuesday. So is Paris Saint-Germain against Bayern. Woof. So we'll be previewing those games with James and Jules and Seb and Paul, and also reviewing the weekend's action. The Milan-Roma game that I've got on a little window right now in Serie A. Roma looking to go top of the league. Jamie Vardy against Juve, and other stories that don't relate to Serie A. Like Bayern Munich, they've now gone 15 games consecutive wins. That's not the way you say it, but you know what I mean. 15 straight wins. Madness. JJ, Thursday, perhaps the key fixture is Rangers against this Roma team.
Is that right?
Yeah, in that Europa League.
Well, they've all changed, haven't they, Rangers? So
Have they now?
Well, they've got a new manager in.
Yeah.
Whose name I can't remember. Danny Roll. That's the one, yeah.
Is he on a roll?
I haven't watched them play yet, so I can't tell you.
He has a new role.
Yeah, I've seen he's changed the shape, and I've been told that they look better straight away, but that often happens when a new manager comes in, so we'll see how that goes with them.
Well, hang on. Didn't they play today in the Scottish League Cup semi-finals? How well did that go for them?
I believe Celtic won that after extra time.
3-1? 3-1.
Watching the other game and travelling in, so I did not see that either.
Oh, okay.
I cannot tell you how they did it. But
of course, the big story in Scottish football isn't Rangers. It's the team at the top.
That's right. Hearts doing very well this year.
So the lead has been fluctuating a little bit, but it's back up to 9 points with Celtic in League Cup action this weekend.
Yes. So
9 points. And yet you still think Celtic are going to come back.
Yeah, it's not that I'm a total pessimist with it. It is just pure realism, and I've lived through it, for 40 years now.
Really?
Yes.
This may happen all the time then. When was the last time you had a team this far ahead of the big two?
It was quite recent. I can't remember was it maybe even last season. Aberdeen were doing really well. It was last season. It just feels so long ago.
Yeah. I remember you coming in and talking about it, but they weren't this far ahead, were they?
No, they weren't. They were level, I think, with Celtic, and then they dropped away. Celtic
Right.
beat them something like 6-0, I think. And it all, I might have my numbers wrong there, but they started to fall away then. But Hearts beat Celtic. They looked good for it as well. It was last week. Genuinely quite impressive. They've signed some players from. They've scouted really well. There's obviously, I'm sure you talked about it before in the podcast, but Tony Bloom involvement. So the players they brought in are doing a really good job. And you think, well, Celtic should have signed them, but Celtic are. This is the thing. It's so funny with league tables. Hearts are 9 points ahead right now. If Celtic win their game in hand, which they will, because they always do, they'll be 6 points, which doesn't sound quite so much because that's just a couple of.
Because it's not.
Isn't it? Exactly right. So then this is what happens, and it's not that. I would like someone else other than the Rangers or Celtic to win that league.
How long has it been?
1985.
40 years.
Yes. So I would like it if someone would break that duopoly because it would be more fun for the league. And I just like that idea that it could happen. And this season, there's so many perfect storms that Rangers have really dropped off. Celtic going through the manager and all other stuff. It just could be this season. And I like the ambition that they're showing and going with it.
But you don't think it will be? Okay. We'll keep an eye on it. Meantime, just before we get back to the Premier League, Adrian, you joined us this evening with news from Southampton, where Will Still is no longer. We were asking, after their defeat this weekend, will Still be Southampton manager? And we'll never get the chance to say that again because he's not anymore.
No, I feel for him because he did so well in Ligue 1, earned his shot in English football. And if he'd have gone to a different club where things were a bit more stable, where it wasn't, where the team wasn't in such a sort of funk, then he maybe could have been a success because he's clearly a good coach. But yeah, it's been a terrible start to the season. They're really close to the drop zone. They've only won twice. Got beat at home to Preston at the weekend. Preston had 4 big chances. They had none. It wasn't unlucky. So it's a bit of a mess at the moment, but the supporters never really turned on Will Still as far as I'm aware. It was more the ownership that they're not happy with. So whether there's trust in them to pick the right replacement, I would imagine there's a lot of scepticism among Saints fans. But I think Will Still will be back. I hope he gets another opportunity in English football because he clearly wants to make it work over here. But you sense he might have to go back to France to re-establish that reputation.
Oh, all right. Well, we shall see. Of course, the last Southampton manager went to Rangers.
Yes. Did not work well for him.
Didn't work out well for him. Very good. There'll be a What the EFL perhaps this week, will there, Adrian?
100%. Yeah, Monday morning we're recording, so it'll be out Monday lunchtime. Yeah, looking forward to
Lovely.
it. It was a brilliant weekend in the Championship. There were stories everywhere, and we're going to cover the lot.
Crikey. Meanwhile, in our humble Totally Football show, looking at Premier League Matchday 10, next up it's Spurs, 0, Chelsea 1, Saturday tea time, a game which finished in slightly unpleasant fashion for Tottenham with boos from the home fans and a couple of Tottenham players appearing to rudely blank that nice man Thomas Frank. Adrian, I'll go to you because you've been a player. You walked off the pitch with a manager perhaps extending his hand to you. Have you seen the footage of Mickey van der Ven and Jed Spence?
Only a still.
Okay.
So did he reach out his hand and they walked
Well, he
past
clearly addresses them and they make no acknowledgement of it. They don't turn their heads towards him. They don't address him. They walk past him. He's inviting all the players to go and salute and kind of in some way interact with the Spurs fans, and they very much decline this opportunity, despite the exhortations of not just their manager, but various other staff as they made their way down the tunnel. It doesn't say nice things, I guess, about how things are behind the scenes, I suppose.
No, it's not a good look. That's not a good look because you need to be united in success, united in defeat. That's what makes good teams. And if there's a couple of lads there that think, nah, stuff it, I don't want to go over and clap the fans, then that's a divide, isn't it? You've got to just swallow it and do it, in my opinion. It yeah, it's all for one, isn't it? And that's how it should be. So Thomas Frank won't have liked that. The emotions do run high. Obviously, final whistle, you've been booed off. It's been a bit of a disaster. I mean, it was a disaster, wasn't it? It was a really poor performance. So I can kind of give them a pass this time, as in emotions were getting the better of them. But if there's a repeat of that kind of situation, that shows you that there's a lack of respect, first and foremost, for the badge, for the fans, and importantly for the manager, which isn't good.
I must admit, I was really surprised by it because Thomas Frank had always seemed such a nice guy and a manager who enjoyed such a good relationship with his players. Neither of these two performed anything like their best in this game. One of them conceded a goal. One of them could very nearly. Van der Ven, basically his mistake led to the only goal of the game, and Jed Spence just before that had given the ball away for what could have been Chelsea's opener.
That's what I think. It's slightly rich on the player's part if you've not had a great game or contributed to the only goal. To it can't always all be on the manager. There's been some interesting team selection. He clearly doesn't seem fully satisfied with that left hand side. Playing Spencer's kind of I think he's feeling really well there at times, but it's not the same as having Destiny Doggy there. He started Lucas Bergvall off the left in this game. Again, it's kind of a case of who's the best option there. Maybe Odebear. Could you use Kudus on that side and open up someone on the right? There doesn't seem to be a space for Brennan Johnson in the starting 11, which is a little bit bizarre to me because he was top scorer last season. Again, there's question marks on him as a winger versus a guy that just kind of scores tap-ins at the back post. But for a team that need goals at home, you think you've got a source of goals there that you're not using. But I think the biggest problems are not really having Madison Kulusevski available with injuries, or Dominic Solanke, that they're really key players that then it's hard to be kind of a dominant team without. They've kind of compensated. They've been really good away from home, so they're still kind of high up enough in the league, top 4, top 5. But I get why that would still make a lot of Spurs fans, Matchday fans disappointed, because if you're not there for a lot of the away games and you're seeing them perform badly at home, then that's the place you want to be having your most success.
How badly did they perform? Well, they had an XG of 0.05 in this game. That's the lowest they've ever produced in a Premier League match. It's the lowest produced by any side in a Premier League game this season. Only one shot on target. And you say the absences that they have, but I guess that's where the manager's tactical nous comes in to create something, to bring a little, to fashion something. And that was, I think I'm right in saying that what Spurs fans are most upset about, their total lack of ambition from their team in such a key game against their big rivals.
Yeah, and I think the big problem they've got is they don't produce very much in open play, so that they don't really produce that much. And the big part of that is how do they want to build? How are teams playing against them? How do they want to create in the final third? I don't think they're really settled with what they've got in the final third. I think when they're trying to build, they've got João Palhinha, who is great at winning the ball and breaking up plays, a good character to have around, definitely, but isn't the kind of player that progress it. I don't see Bentancur being particularly great at that either. He's good all-rounder, but I don't think excels at anything particular. And so I think they struggle to play out, so they have to try and play in a different way to get out. And then when they get to positions, they're often maybe wide and they don't have anything in central areas to be able to help create. And then other teams are all big and massive and just block them out. And so you end up relying on set pieces, which is what a lot of teams are finding this season. And so Spurs have scored quite a bit, I think, from set pieces. I've not checked that, but I'm pretty sure they do well with that. So this is what happens, but they need to create an open play to make it fun because it's very boring to watch. And I did suspect this might happen to Spurs this season, because whenever I've watched Brentford play in real life a few times, last few seasons, I never thought they were that fun to watch. They're very pragmatic, they did things the right way, they would do things in a certain way, they made a lot of goals from set pieces. But I think the start of it, there's an argument maybe that Frank's trying to make them really hard to break down first. But then can you do that and still have creativity as well?
Right.
Because if you're doing it in stages, if you're trying to change Spurs from what they were to what they were going to become, you build the defence first. So make them horrible playing against first.
That's what Nuno did, and that worked out well when he was at Tottenham Hotspur.
Well, exactly. You don't want to watch it either.
Adrian.
Yeah, I think a lot of it in any team stems from your striker. It stems from your centre forward. And they're missing their best centre forward, aren't they, in Dominic Solanke, who I think will suit Thomas Frank's style of play with the industry that he's got, the physicality, etc. And it's been a rotating cast, hasn't it? I've never been a Richarlison fan as a striker. really like his attitude. So like maybe that clouds my judgment of him. He's clearly talented, but I don't think he's a guy you can rely on week in, week out. Matthias Tel, I don't rate. I don't think he's done anything really of note in the Premier League. Brennan Johnson's not got that physicality to play as a striker. So they need Solanke back, and I think that's when we should probably judge Frank a little bit more closely, because the striker will set the tone in his teams. Just look at Brentford. It was all about how they got that striker into the game, how they used the strikers. So yeah, let's see. But he's finding, isn't he? Just the expectation levels are so much different. Getting good results and being in the top 6 at Spurs kind of isn't enough if you're playing a really boring brand of football. You know, to dare is to do is the motto. There's not much daring going on, is there? So
No.
I think that he's going to have to try something he's not used to trying to succeed fully.
Although the last chap had them playing exciting football and down in 17th, they're now currently 5th, but playing dull football.
It's a balance, yeah.
Correction, right? It's a big tactical overcorrection, which I get why it jars more because people like attacking and they like goals. Postecoglou had a really good start by comparison, and then they fell away. And you look at the kind of he's picking quite stodgy midfields, as JJ was saying. Even like the number 10 kind of playing Papsar there. He's played Bergvall there. Like even looking at the bench that they had, and Simons came on early on for Bergvall because of a concussion, but the bench is Kinski, the backup goalkeeper, Simons, Richarlison, Tell, Johnson, Odebert, Scarlett. They're all forwards, and then you've got Simons as a midfielder in there, I suppose. Udogie as a fullback, and Romero as a centre back, and that is, you kind of kept all your firepower on the bench. And in a way that I think Chelsea done it in a similar fashion this season is say, let's kind of keep games tighter for longer, keep it kind of level by 60 minutes, 70 minutes, then we can try and win it later on, which is. It isn't, to Adrian's point, a very daring way, but it is the method that I think Thomas Frank's had success with elsewhere. So I see why he'd start with that coming in here.
Chelsea won this one in the 34th minute, as it turned out. João Pedro set up by a wonderful bit of rambunctious...
Caicedo.
You're from Caicedo, yeah.
He
goes in and harries the Spurs back line and wins the ball and slides it across. And what a player, JJ?
He like sees through time. We were talking about time earlier, the intro of time. He sort of knows what's going to happen next.
Was it earlier or was it now? Was it?
When was it always?
When was it?
Yeah.
We're always talking about time.
Because he's always somewhere. But yeah. And I think, I think if you've seen the goal, you see that he steps in to win it a few times. It's really impressive that he's got like the aggression. It's like controlled aggression. He's so good at it. So that he'd be a nightmare to play against, but you'd never want to start on him. Some people go in really hard and it's annoying, but Caicedo goes in and you're just like, he's better than me. And he keeps winning the ball. And then he's also really good with it. I think so. I saw someone on Twitter, so I can't remember who said it, sorry, but I think talking about Palhinha wins the ball all the time really well for Spurs in different places, but Caicedo does that for Chelsea everywhere and also can play. Like he can dribble with it, he can pass it, I think he's one of the best midfielders that is around at the moment. He's fantastic.
Excellent. Chelsea move up to 6th place now. They are level on points with Spurs, but behind them on goal difference. Spurs will have a tough run coming up. They've got 4 of last season's top 6 to take on between now and the start of December, as well as Champions League away ties at Monaco and Paris Saint-Germain too. Although you may recall that Spurs took on Paris Saint-Germain in the European Super Cup in Udine and took them all the way to penalties. Yeah. Chelsea are off to Azerbaijan on Wednesday to take on Karabakh. Spurs on Thursday face Copenhagen. On Tuesday, not Thursday. Spurs, who are very much in the Champions League, take on Copenhagen on Tuesday. Man United on Saturday lunchtime, meanwhile. So that'll be an interesting game. What else happened this weekend? Nothing much. Nothing much, Liam?
No.
Brighton. Liam's a Brighton fan. Brighton beat Leeds 3-0. And the team who Brighton are going to be facing next weekend, Crystal Palace, in the big one, as it's known.
Not a derby, a rivalry,
right.
The big one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Palace also got a win. They beat Brentford 2-0, continuing their good unbeaten continuing their home unbeaten form, but bouncing back from that series of disappointments they'd had, Palace. But we'll talk about them in a second. How were Brighton? How were they for their 3-0 win against Leeds?
they were convincing, which they haven't always been against newly promoted teams. They've been a bit of a problem for them. And Leeds have been a really physical side. I think that was part of the concern that Brighton like to be quite a technical team. I think quite technical in midfield. Carlos Baleba can definitely do both sides of the game, but I think Yasin Ayari especially is kind of a bit of a smaller midfielder, looks good when teams sit off them and he can really play, and Leeds did a bit. Some really nice, really well worked goals. It helps that Welbeck's in really good scoring form, but I think, again, they're putting the chances there for him. Vitor getting kind of on the overlap for the first one, for a cutback, and Diego Gomez crashing the box for the second as well.
Who is Diego Gomez, who scored 2 goals in this game, taking his tally to 7 for the season? 5 admittedly in the Carabao Cup, but still.
I mean, if people haven't seen, because people might not watch Brighton's Carabao Cup games, that's fairly understandable, but he has a nice goal of the season competition with himself away to Barnsley where, not only does he score 4, but I think the first 3 of them, the hat-trick, are absolutely incredible. Really, really good ball striker. I've seen some quite funny things on Twitter where people say that Brighton just seem to kind of spawn in a random, really good South American once every 6 months. A player they've brought in, taken their time to kind of work with. I think he's a really nice kind of one of those halfway between kind of a winger and a number 10, good physical player. But he's just really technically smart, came over from the MLS, and looks the business. Smart enough to kind of crash the box. I remember seeing him on, I think, his Premier League debut, or perhaps his first kind of start against Bournemouth earlier this calendar year. So again, he's not been in the Premier League massively long. It's kind of shades of Caicedo when he first came into that team, and hit the ground running. Some players adapt really quickly, some don't. And technically, he looks really, really tidy. And they've needed, I think, players like that in midfield to really chip in with goals as well.
Excellent. Adrian, would you have Danny Welbeck on the plane?
Ooh. Well, he's in with a shout, isn't he? I mean, if you're picking it on form, he'd be in the squad, wouldn't he? Because he's... I genuinely think Danny Welbeck is playing better now than he's ever played in his career. And, he's been around a while and he's had good seasons. So I don't know if I'd have him on the plane, if truth be told, given got Watkins and 1 or 2 others, but he's got to be close. He's got to be. And it would be an amazing story. And actually, as a stylistic sort of backup to Kane, it's not a million miles away, is it? So if I'm Thomas Tuchel, he's on my shortlist. Absolutely he is.
All right. I think he'd be fun to have around in an extended World Cup camp, or hopefully extended World Cup camp.
7 years, though, isn't it, since he played for England? So
is it?
Yeah. So it would be quite the comeback. I mean, that'd be an amazing story.
Right, next weekend, take on Crystal Palace. Palace beat Brentford 2-0. Jean-Philippe Mateta with yet another goal. One of the surprises. A player who's constantly surprising you, JJ, I should say.
Yeah, because he's clearly really good, but yet when I see him, I'm always sort of surprised, like, oh yeah, he is actually really good. Because I think it's because of the start for so long, he just didn't seem like that good a player, And there's obviously a huge jump in his statistics from before Oliver Glasner turned up and after. But in the current Premier League climate of set pieces and big, massive lads, he's like the proper, perfect number 9 for you. His hold-up play isn't always the best. The ball bounces off him sometimes, but his timing, anticipation, when to go and when to drop, when to move is almost always great. But he plays between the width of the posts. You always hear people talk about this with strikers. He does that, and his timing and anticipation, again, he just knows when to go and always seems to arrive at the right time to finish things off. Doesn't always finish his chances, but I love strikers who get loads of chances. Like, he gets loads more chances than other strikers do. And I've always enjoyed watching those because you just get more goals. And as we know, we love goals.
He's quirky, though, because he doesn't score headers. Ironically, this was a headed goal, but very, very rarely scores headers. I interviewed him with our Crystal Palace reporter, Matt Woosnam, earlier on last season, just before the FA Cup. I think it was semi-final, perhaps the final, and he was kind of talking about that. He very much volunteered, being like, I just don't score enough headers, and like, is there kind of any reason for that? Because he's got the build of a traditional number 9. He attacks, as JJ says, crosses really well. You think, like, what's kind of missing? And he just says it's just not something he's ever really done much, and I guess just prefers to score with his feet. Of his last 38 goals in the Premier League, only 3 have been headers. So he's, wow. And I think it's kind of down to Palace's system also. I think Daniel Munoz especially, but Tariq Mitchell a bit as well. They provide him really good low crosses, so he doesn't need to always score headed goals.
Although I thought Palace did lots of long throws.
That they do, but then it's the players that they have to score there. It's kind of players picking up second balls. It's been Ismaila Sarr crashing the back post. And this time we were speaking about the chaos earlier on, right? Is an own goal from Nathan Collins. So this is part of the chaos of you don't even need the player there. You want to just create a really messy situation where the defenders are so panicked and haven't really got the space to move to go, I just need to get my head on the ball no matter where it goes. And I think that was a great example. I think that's 3 long throw goals Palace have had this season now. So quite funny in the 3 different ways they've scored them. One was a great move against Villa with a back post flick on Sarr. The one against Liverpool was a bit scrappier for Nketiah, again at the back post, and then Collins' own goal. So
there you go, chaos. Wolves should get the Joker in as their next manager.
I feel that could be more chaotic.
Too chaotic, you feel?
Yes, I feel like that.
Very possibly. All right. Crystal Palace have AZ Alkmaar in the Conference League on Thursday before they go to Brighton or perhaps welcome Brighton.
That's our spot.
Ooh. Where they are, as we mentioned, unbeaten in 11 games. Very good. Adrian, anything else we should know before we sign off for this Totally Football show?
No, I think we're done and dusted. Yeah,
Lovely
that's
stuff.
the job done. I've enjoyed it.
Well, thank you. You made it enjoyable, Adrian. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on everything below the Premier League and what the EFL out on Monday. And on YouTube and on the PremierLeague.com. JJ, you'll have your TIFO thing out. Yeah. And remember, if you want to hear JJ hitting the high notes, you've also got a very popular YouTube channel, I should say, as well. The contents of which are largely musical, and you can be enjoyed at the Moth Club on the 6th of December.
6th of December at Moth Club, yeah, that's right. And all my songs that I do outside of work is on Spotify and all the places.
Of course they are. And you've actually got a physical record.
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
I've sold a few of them. It's good.
Brilliant.
It's great. It's really good fun.
Excellent. Liam, you're busy typing up, and I know this sounds a little less exciting, but your match report on West Ham Newcastle, but that'll be equally exciting, I'm sure.
It probably is less exciting, but please read it anyway.
All right. Great stuff. Whatever you're up to, hope you have a great time, listener stroke viewer. And we'll be back with, as mentioned, the Euro show early Tuesday. So do join us for that ahead of a busy midweek. Many thanks as well to Jake and producer Charlie in the booth. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye.